Hello and welcome to this episode of Math with Martinez. In this video, we are in our Algebra 2, Unit 4, where we're looking at expressions, factoring, and equations with rational exponents. And our objective in this video is that second skill, and that's to determine the quotient of a polynomial by long division or synthetic division. So we're on to our very last operation, that is division today. Long division is the first algorithm that we're going to focus on. And in order to divide a polynomial by another polynomial, we'll use the long division algorithm that we used back in elementary school to divide large numbers. So I'm going to show you guys how to apply that algorithm when what we're dividing isn't just numbers, but polynomials. We're going to go ahead and begin by rewriting the problem using that long division format. So you take and place outside of your little divider the amount that you're dividing by, and inside you're going to put the x cubed plus 4x squared plus x minus 6. So outside is our divisor. It's what we're dividing by. And inside is the dividend. And the answer is what's going to be up here on top. That's called your quotient. So we rewrite the problem using the long division format. Be sure that the terms are in descending order, meaning that we go from a power of 3 to a power of 2 to one that is technically a power of 1, right? This is technically our linear term, which is a power of 1, but we don't need to write the 1 in there. And then lastly, our constant. Now, what we're going to do here in blue is we're going to divide the first term of the dividend. The first term of our dividend is right here, the x cubed. Let me actually get a light blue color here. My x cubed by the first term of our divisor. The first term of my divisor is this x squared. Please color code this like I am doing right now. So we're going to divide that. What is x cubed divided by x squared? It is kind of the same thing as asking, what would I need to multiply x squared by to get x cubed? What would I multiply x squared by to get x cubed? Well, having just practiced multiplication, we know it's just to multiply by x. And we're going to go ahead and write that. Now we want to write it above the term with that same degree or with that same power. So I'm going to put it above my linear term because I'm just multiplying by x. Now, that is the end of step number 2. We're then going to multiply the entire divisor, which is everything outside here, by our term in the quotient, aligning the products under our dividend. So let's go ahead and do that multiplication. X times x squared is x cubed, and I'm lining it up underneath the cubic term. X times x is a positive x squared. And then x times negative 2 is a negative 2x. All right, there we go. We multiplied the entire divisor by the term in the quotient, aligning the product under the dividend. Next is going to be to subtract and bring down the next term to obtain our new dividend. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that subtraction. I want this to be really bold, so get another bold color here. We're going to do the subtraction. Again, what are we going to do? We're going to subtract. So what happens when we take the difference here? X cubed minus x cubed is nothing. There's no x cubed, so those are eliminated. Now, what do we have when we have a 4x minus an x? I'm sorry, 4x squared minus an x squared. That's going to give us 3x squares remaining. Next term, what do we have? When I have an x minus a negative, that's going to actually be addition minus a negative. So now I have a 3x. Okay, so that's the result of subtracting those. Now we're ready to bring down our next term and begin the process all over again, beginning steps 2 through 4 again until there's nothing left to bring down. Well, we're at our last term here, so this will be the last thing we have to bring down. So we start again. We're going to divide now this first term, 3x squared, by this term in our divisor. Or we're asking ourselves, what would I multiply this by to get this term? Well, I would definitely have to multiply it by a 3 to get a coefficient of 3, and then that would be it. 3 times x squared is, in fact, 3x squared. And then we keep multiplying. The 3 times the next part in my divisor. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Now we've multiplied. That was step number 3, and we're ready to do it again. Do the subtraction once again. And look at that. Every single one of these terms is actually the same. So when we subtract it, 3 minus 3, that is going to cancel out. 3 minus 3, that's going to cancel out. Negative 6 minus 6, that's going to cancel out. And we have nothing left over. That thing at the end, if there would have been anything left, this is what we call remainder. But because there's a remainder of 0, that means that this polynomial divides perfectly into the other polynomial. There is no remainder. What we can say is that x squared, let me make just a little note here in the margin. Because there is 0 remainder, x squared plus x minus 2 and x plus 3 are factors of that original polynomial because it divides evenly without any remainders. All right, so what is our answer? When we divide x cubed plus 4x plus 6 minus 6 by x squared plus x minus 2, the quotient is x plus 3, which I'm going to change that color and have it match what we had up there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our answer. There we go. That is the long division algorithm. It's not terribly difficult. It looks like there's a lot of steps, but we just repeat the steps again and again and again. Now there's another algorithm that we can use in very specific cases. When a polynomial is divided by a binomial of the form x minus a, or it could be looking like x plus an a, then we can use a simpler algorithm to find our quotient. So only when it's of this format, can we use synthetic division. If not, then long division is the only method that we can take. But in this case, because we are dividing by that form, do you see here how this is of the form x minus a? Because it is in that form, we can use synthetic division. So what we're going to do to begin is we're going to list the coefficients of our dividend in descending order. Remember, this right here is our dividend. And this is called the divisor. So we're going to list the coefficients of our dividend in descending order, including a 0 for any missing terms. So let's make sure we get these all in order. So I have, for my power 3, a coefficient of 3. Then for my power 2, I have a coefficient of -8. Then what would come next is actually a power of 1 or a linear term, but I don't have a linear term, so I have to put in a 0. So this is the cube. This is the square. This is the linear. And this right here is my constant. Which is a positive 14. All right, so I'm just kind of helping you guys to see this. You don't have to write all of these things above it when you're doing it. Write them in your notes right now so that you do have the record. Let's make a little note to ourselves that there was no linear term. So we included a 0 as a placeholder. To fill in that gap. Sometimes you'll have more than one gap that you have to fill in. Then what we're going to do is inside a little box like this out in front, we're going to place our a value. The a value is always what is being subtracted. It always looks opposite of what it is in the binomial. Our a value is actually a2. It's the opposite. The a value is what happens when you set it equal to 0 and solve. When you set it equal to 0, what would you need to do? You would need to add 2 on each side to find that 0. Well, that is what we need to have in our little divisor box out in front. All right. Then we'll set up a little bar right here. Leave some space. Leave some space right here. We're going to have values that get filled in right there. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to, right here, bring down that leading coefficient of 3. So here's my leading coefficient. We're going to bring down that leading coefficient of 3. That was step number 1, just kind of getting it set up. Take all the coefficients, list them out, fill in any zeros, place your a value in the little divisor box out front, and then bring down that leading coefficient. Now we start our algorithm. We're going to go ahead and multiply our leading coefficient, which is right here, our 3, right? I brought down that 3. That's my leading coefficient of 3. I'm going to multiply that leading coefficient by our a value and place the product, which we'll do in blue, under the second coefficient. So 2 times 3 is 6. We're going to place that under the next coefficient. Then what we'll do is we'll add the coefficient and that product. So when I take -8 and add to it 6, we get -2. And then we repeat this process again. I'm going to take 2 and multiply it with -2 and put that answer underneath the next coefficient. So what is that going to be? We're going to have -4 placed right here. That's the product. Then add those down, and what did we get? -4. Again, we start this process again. Take the 2, multiply it with the -4, put that product underneath the next coefficient. That's going to be a -7. Then add those down, and that's going to be a 7. So we repeat that process until you reach the remainder. Always circle the last number that you get. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the remainder. The last line provides you with the coefficients of the polynomial in descending order and our remainder. So here's how I translate this back into an actual polynomial. I'm going to work from left to right. I'm going to begin with my remainder. I'm going to work, from right to left. And reinsert the powers. Okay, so 7 is my remainder. Remainders, you always will write them over what you were dividing by. So it was the quotient of x minus 2. Then you have the next after that is the -4. The -4, that 7, was positive, so we'll put plus that remainder. The -4 is your constant, no variable associated with it. This is your constant. Then when you increase the power by 1, what's something 1 greater than a constant? That's the linear term. So that would mean I have -2x. And then the next one, we'd bump it up again. This was my remainder. This was my remainder. This was a constant. This was linear. So this is my quadratic term. I have 3x squared. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the final answer. This is the quotient when you divide those polynomials. This is the result. Okay? Remember, be so careful to work when you want to reinsert those powers, to do so working from right to left, beginning with this last value being your remainder. Write it over what you were dividing by, your divisor, and then reinsert the powers with the coefficients you found. That's synthetic division and polynomial long division. That's how we divide polynomials. If y'all had any questions on these 2 different algorithms, please take a moment and share those now. And until next time, stay fired up.